My name is Murthy from Yoga Vidya in Cologne in Germany. I'm pleased to announce a seminar with James Swartz on the 16th and 17th of May. The content of the seminar is the Kena Upanishad. James will explain the content and the subject of the seminar in the following video. At the end of the video you can find information how to apply. You can also apply via the website of James Swartz, shiningworld.com. We are happy to see you in May.
I want to give you an idea of what you should expect if you attend this seminar on the Kena Upanishad. So I will read and explain a few verses. If you've read it previously, please try to forget everything you know, because you cannot set yourself free by reading holy books. The very fact that you are reading means that you are ignorant of the subject matter, and inevitably ignorance will cause you to misunderstand the words. The subject matter of Vedanta is yourself. If ignorance interprets the words, you will not gain knowledge, since the purpose of knowledge is to remove ignorance. If you knew that you were ignorant, you wouldn't look for book knowledge of yourself. You would just know it because it is always present and it was here before the written word. So you need another means of knowledge than your eyes, which is to say, you need to listen. But who should you listen to? You should not listen to somebody whose qualifications for teaching is based upon his or her personal experience, because experiences are nothing but recollections of momentary events cooked up by the conditioning of the experiencing person. Experience doesn't transfer from one person to another. If I experienced the fragrance of a rose yesterday, you do not experience it today when I tell you about it. You experience my words, but you don't experience the rose. Even if we are both present smelling the same rose now, the way we experience it is specific to our conditioning. If someone's self-knowledge is based upon a particular experience or various spiritual experiences, you are not going to experience what they experienced unless you have the same self, which you don't, or you wouldn't be listening to them. So you should listen to an impersonal scientific means of knowledge. But since means of knowledge can't speak, you need to listen to someone who can skillfully handle the teaching. If you want to learn the meaning of E equals mc squared, for instance, you need to be taught physics by someone who's been taught physics. Yes, you can say it means energy equals mass times the speed of light squared, but what exactly does that mean in terms of your everyday life? Many factors must be understood before you can follow the logic that produces the knowledge of energy. The Kena Upanishad, which is the spiritual equivalent of E equals mc squared, does not supply all the relevant background information necessary to understand who you actually are. It assumes that you are prepared. This is not to say that if you are new to Vedanta and you can actually listen with an open mind, you will not benefit from this seminar. The message will be inspiring, but it may not stick. If so, I hope that this great teaching will stimulate your interest in Vedanta and you will pursue this knowledge. All the resources required to point you in the right direction can be found on shiningworld.com. Anyway, since I was taught by someone who was properly taught, and since the knowledge set me free, I am qualified to explain the meaning of these verses. Many of you are qualified to hear this beautiful text also, and you will not be disappointed. In any case, the inquirer asked the teacher, and I quote, "By whose will is the mind directed to its objects? By whose command does the life breath do its duty? Who causes the eyes to see and the ears to hear? Who speaks through the mouth?" Why is it so difficult for ordinary people to understand what they are? Because we think our body-mind-sense complex is conscious, when, in fact, only awareness, the self, is conscious. But this seeker is unusual. He understands that the body is an assemblage of inert material parts and cannot be conscious. He or she wants to know what makes the eyes scan the field of vision, the ears hear sounds, the nose smell smells, and so forth. He infers an independent factor and wants to know that hidden cause. And what does the teacher say? First, he says, quote, "It is the eye of the eye, the mind of the mind, the speech of speech, the life of life, and the ear of the ear." Then he reveals the method for liberating oneself from its material bodies. He says, "Separating the self from the senses and renouncing the world, the wise one realizes its immortal nature." He describes it in this way because only unknown objects require metaphors. Known objects can be accurately described in straightforward language. But the self is not an object with properties and qualities, so it is described in this way as the eye, the ear, and so forth. One of the biggest problems that happens when we hear about something wonderful is that we immediately want to experience it. When you hear about the benefits of yoga, for instance, you want to experience it. When you hear about a good movie, you want to experience it. But experience doesn't work for the self because you're always experiencing yourself. So we have to use logic. If the teacher says, quote, "You are the ever full, blissful awareness consciousness right now," unquote, it contradicts my experience of myself and I will be confused. So he calls it the eye, and so forth. Which means that you're expected to understand it without objectifying it. Which is to say, you need to non-identify with objects to understand who you really are. Objects are only real for you when you identify with them. For instance, where is your wife when you're thinking of your football team? Where are your shoes when you're worrying about money? We only pursue objects because we think they are apart from the thought of them in our mind. The rest of chapter 1 explains what the self is, how it can be known, how you can claim it as your identity, and the immortality benefit. In chapter 2, the teacher wants to find out if the inquirer understands who he is now and now that he's been taught. He says, quote, if you think you know awareness well, then you only know a small portion of it. Therefore, limitless awareness is worthy of inquiry. Means there's something you don't know about yourself. We will save the student's reply for the seminar because I don't want you to prematurely claim your enlightenment unless you actually understand what the following verse means. In any case, the teacher supplies the reasoning on the basis of which you can make a claim. Without giving too much away, he paradoxically states, quote, the one who knows it not, but the one who knows it not knows it. In any case, if you were unable to understand, and although the truth is simple, it's not easy to understand, Chapter 3 introduces the God principle, which helps people with dull or hyperactive minds who can't retain what they've heard. For example, children are taught numbers by counting on their fingers and toes until their minds are subtle enough to count without symbols. So, it explains the basic factors that prevent assimilation of self-knowledge in the form of a simple story. Finally, the last chapter presents 3 secondary techniques that refine and discipline the mind so that it is capable of retaining the immortal, blissful knowledge, which is like the knowledge of your name. Once you know it, you need not think about it anymore.